So the second question is, are there jobs for these graduates? What is the demand for agricultural graduates? And I have to acknowledge Rimfire Resources, who collected a lot of the data that I'll be talking about and willingly handed it over for to be analysed. Rimfire Resources is the major agricultural employment company for agricultural graduates in Australia, and so we are really grateful for their assistance. The agriculture job market advertisements look something like that. So if we take the red line as the on-farm production, the blue line is the agribusiness, we add them together, we get the green line. We need to just treat that number with a little bit of caution, because there's about a 20% overlap between papers and internet, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But it's telling us that there is a pretty steady supply of jobs being advertised, even during the peak trough of the drought. And if you have a peak trough, I'm not sure. But anyway, when the drought really hit in late 2008 and early 2009. So roughly somewhere around about 3,500 conservatively. Now if we have a close look at that and split that up, then we can, if we sort of say, okay, well, let's be conservative in the job market and only look at the top, line, and say, well, it's at least that many with the duplication with open internet. So for agribusiness, we're talking about 1,000 jobs a quarter being advertised. 1,000 jobs a quarter. In management, farm management, and we're talking about a fairly consistent 300 a quarter, except for that really heavy drought lighting episode. And the non-management group being around about 2,000 plus. The other interesting thing that you might have a look at there is that the role of the internet is of interest, and here we're getting sort of almost one-to-one relationship between paper and internet for agribusiness. It's about 3-to-1 for on-farm management, but it's about 2,000-to-1 for non-management on-farm jobs. So there's clearly a social experiment going on there at varying rates. If we split up the agribusiness jobs into various categories, then, and again these are in quarters over those 4 years, then the important point to note is that in all those sectors there's at least 100 jobs per quarter being advertised. And in the livestock and cropping area we're talking about at least 250 jobs in each advertised per quarter. So the job market's actually quite buoyant, and it's consistently buoyant, and it sort of puts paid to the view that there are no jobs out there in agriculture. The Sydney Morning Herald and the Age, the basis of job projections in official policy a few years ago, I asked you to have a look at New South Wales and Victoria. There's the Sydney Morning Herald, and there's the Age, and that's the basis on which the job market in agriculture was determined in 2007. It's a joke. Fortunately, the government and the people that made those projections have been very responsive to these real data, and so the policy has actually turned around 90 degrees. No, 180 degrees, 90 degrees twice, in fact, in fairly quick time. So we have to acknowledge the fact that there has been a policy adjustment. So, the summary is that the job market is something like 4,000, 6,000 jobs per year for graduates. 4,000, 6,000 jobs per year for graduates. The university sector is at most putting out around about 800 graduates a year. 800 graduates a year, and that's sort of in decline. And so put those two together, and our industry is in capacity decline in a big way. Now there's some implications for all of this. The fact that the students aren't coming in the front door of the universities means that there has been a rationalisation of universities that actually offer agricultural degrees at undergraduate level. There's been amalgamation, there's been restructures, and there's been attrition. And so we've moved from 1989, probably at the peak, of something like 18 or 19 institutions offering agriculture to something like about 8 or 9 in 2011, and we expect probably further attrition to occur as well. That means that there's less opportunity now for people to undertake agricultural education. We've not only reduced the number of institutions, but we've substantially reduced the number of campuses. And so education in agriculture is not that readily available. Students who are interested are going to have to travel to get to an institution that offers it. We won't get the casual student coming in to see what they might do and then take up agriculture because it seems like a good idea at the time. The consequence of that, of course, is that we now have fewer qualified advisors, and we're concerned about the flow through to R&D as there are fewer agricultural students available to undertake higher degrees, and Roger Lee will talk more closely about that. And the third one is that there are increased opportunities as a result of this decline. There's heaps more opportunity for poor advice. There's plenty of poor advice being given out there. You don't have to have any qualifications to be an advisor in agriculture in Australia. Why do we allow that to happen? And of course, there's enormous opportunity for evidence-free products and services, the snake oil merchants, to prosper in this particular environment, and they're doing just that. And there aren't the people, the experts, to refute the claims that are being made for which there is no evidence. Is that what the industry wants?